herd management plan, which is the Collegiate Range Pronghorn herd. The Collegiate Range Pronghorn herd is located in the upper Arkansas River Valley near the towns of Salida, Buena Vista, and Leadville. It's 820 square miles. It's bounded on the north and west by the Continental Divide, on the east by the Arkansas River, and on the south by the South Arkansas River and U.S. Highway 50. 80% of the DAU is publicly owned, but only 12% of the DAU is considered pronghorn habitat, and pronghorn tend to use a disproportionate amount of the private lands in the valley bottom, down along the highway and along the river. It includes game management units 48, 56, and 481, and contains portions of Chaffee and Lake counties. Archery licenses for this herd are currently unlimited over the counter, while a limited number of buck and doe licenses are allocated during the rifle and muzzleloader seasons. The Upper Arkansas pronghorn herd is a small population, only numbering about 200 animals, and is likely habitat limited. The previous population objective was 150 animals, and the population tends to fluctuate between there and the current estimate of around 200. Doe harvest is very low in this DAU. Only a handful of does are harvested annually, and there's no indication the available habitat is capable of supporting much more than the current population. A pre-hunt survey of this population is conducted every August prior to the start of the archery season. While the population has increased from around 150 animals to close to 200 animals since the early 2000s, fawn ratios have declined over the same time period. This could be indicative of a population that is near its habitat carrying capacity and has seen a density-dependent response related to fawn survival. It's also possible that other factors such as drought could also be affecting fawn survival in this herd. Several important issues face this small herd, including ever-increasing housing development in the valley, similar to some of the other populations we've heard about today, simultaneous loss of agriculture, noxious weed invasion, and changing climatic factors such as drought. There's also concern among both hunters and landowners about pronghorn moving off of public lands and taking refuge on private lands, as well as decreasing private land access to hunters in the valley. Local landowners were presented a draft of the PH39 plan, along with alternatives on herd size and buck ratios. PH39 license holders were also surveyed via email, and the draft plan was presented to the Local Habitat Partnership Program Committee. The draft plan was also posted on the CPW website for a 30-day comment period, as we always do. Comments were generally in support of the current population size and the preferred alternative of 150 to 200 pronghorn, which allows for a small but viable population of pronghorn in the Upper Arkansas River Valley, while also allowing for some hunter opportunity. Comments were also generally in support of the recommended alternative of a post-hunt buck ratio of 20 to 25 bucks per 100 does. We also heard a lot of support both internally and from public comment for switching this DAU from unlimited over-the-counter archery to a limited archery system. Primarily due to hunter crowding issues and concerned archery hunters are pushing pronghorn from public onto private lands prior to the beginning of the other seasons. Archery hunter numbers have increased dramatically in this DAU in recent years, from approximately 30 in 2010 up towards around 80 in 2018. And local CPW staff are considering an issue paper to address this. Though archery success is generally low in this DAU, with archery hunters generally only harvesting a handful of bucks annually, limiting archery licenses may increase the quality of the hunt, alleviate issues related to pronghorn seeking refuge on private lands, and help us maintain our buck ratio objective. CPW staff are recommending an increase in the population objective of this herd from 150 pronghorn to a range of 150 to 200 pronghorn, which is congruent with the current population estimated size. We are recommending a post-hunt ratio objective of 20 to 25 bucks per 100 does. This is also compatible with current estimates and management of this population. Both of these recommended alternatives were well supported internally and during the public comment process. CPW will continue to do what we can to address issues and concerns related to this small pronghorn herd. We'll continue working with local landowners and agencies to conserve open space and wild lands in the valley while maintaining public hunting access. We'll also continue working with local landowners to address any game damage situations that might arise. This population is likely near its habitat carrying capacity and is within the recommended management objectives. We'll continue to adjust buck and doe doe and buck harvest as necessary, and we'll consider a switch from unlimited over-the-counter archery licenses to a limited archery license system. Thank you for your time with that, and I'd be happy to address any questions if we want to talk about pronghorn before the bighorn plan.
Yeah, I think in this case, let's talk about them separately.
Sure.
Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Vigil.
Thank you. Again, herd management plans are really great. On this one, what I find interesting, and maybe you can explain why, the herd size is declining, but the fawn-doe ratio is increasing.
Yeah, I think you mean the opposite.
What's that?
I think you meant the opposite.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right. The population is increasing and the fawn and doe ratio is decreasing.
Is decreasing,
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
That don't sound right. But
Yeah.
explain
Well,
it, please.
Sure.
That's a good technical answer.
Yeah, the reason the population has maintained stability or even increased slightly is really because we have very limited doe harvest in the population. So, we only harvest a handful of does annually in that population. Because of that population is really allowed to basically be at probably whatever the carrying capacity of the unit is. Some of that increase in the population could be attributed to mild winters that we've had recently. We don't know exactly, I guess, but a lot of it's related to doe harvest and the fact that we just don't harvest many does in that population. So, we don't know absolutely for sure that this is a population that's at carrying capacity, but a lot of things probably indicate that, and one of the things that does indicate that is that oftentimes if you have a population that's nearing carrying capacity or at carrying capacity, the first response you see is a decrease in survival of the young. So that may be one explanation for why we're seeing a decrease in fawn ratios over time. We don't know for sure, but that would be indicative of a population that's at carrying capacity. There's just no more room for more animals in that population, so you see this decrease in survival of the young.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well done, Jamin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bighorn. Wait, am I doing it right? Yes, Rocky Mountain Bighorn.
Thank you. The second herd management plan I'll talk about with you here is the Collegiate Range Bighorn Herd Management Plan. This is RBS 12. The Collegiate Range Bighorn herd is located in, again, central Colorado along the Continental Divide near the towns of Salida, Buena Vista, and Leadville. It's approximately 1,300 square miles, consists of GMUs S11, S17, S66, and S76, and includes portions of Chaffee, Eagle, Gunnison, Lake, and Pitkin counties. This is primarily a high-elevation alpine population, and 88% of the DAU is public land, shown in dark green on the slide there. This is one of the Tier 1 populations in Colorado, meaning it's a large native population of bighorns. Estimates for this herd have ranged from approximately 300 animals in the 1950s to perhaps as low as 100 animals or fewer during the 1970s. However, since accurate aerial surveys were difficult to obtain during those decades, the precision of historic estimates is really unknown. Estimates of the population size have increased from 225 bighorns in the 1980s to the current estimate of approximately 375 animals. By all indications, this population is currently doing as well as it ever has in modern times. Several rams are harvested annually out of each of the S11, S17, and S66 GMUs within RBS 12, with success rates generally averaging around 50% due to steep terrain, difficult hunting conditions, high elevations, those types of things. Based on 3-year averages, the average age of rams harvested from this herd has been 6.8 years of age since 2003. Some minimal ewe harvest also exists within the DAU. The RBS 12 bighorn population faces a variety of challenges in the future. Winter range is limited for this herd as terrain is steep, elevations are high, and snowpack is significant. There are 2 active domestic sheep grazing allotments along the northern boundary of RBS 12, as well as numerous hobby sheep and goat livestock operations within the DAU, and disease transmission is always a concern for this herd. Human recreation from hikers and backpackers is ever increasing, pushing bighorns out of preferred habitats and adding additional stresses to them. Further, several hundred mountain goats also overlap with this population of sheep, and competition can exist between the 2 species. These are all important issues facing the future success and viability of this bighorn population and present present management challenges to CPW. To gather input on the draft herd management plan, we solicited comment from our federal land management partners, local government officials, such as county commissioners, and various interest groups such as Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society and Colorado Wool Growers Association. The draft plan was also shared with the Wild Sheep Domestic Sheep Working Group and was also posted on the CPW website for a 30-day comment period. The majority of comments we received were in support of our current management of this herd and supported the recommended management objectives. The population objective we are recommending for this bighorn population is 350 to 400 animals, which is congruent with the current population size and is as high as has ever been recorded for this herd. Based on limited winter range and current densities of bighorns on winter range, we do not believe this population is capable of growing significantly beyond its current size. Current harvest management seems to be doing a satisfactory job of balancing the competing interests of hunter opportunity and hunt quality. We are recommending general status quo harvest management, allowing for an average age of harvested ram of 6 to 8 years of age based on 3-year averages. This bighorn population is currently doing perhaps as well as it ever has in modern times. However, it does face potential threats, and we will be vigilant in addressing them. CPW will continue working with federal land management agencies and hobby livestock owners to maintain separation between wild sheep and domestics and prevent contact. We will also continue working with federal land management agencies to minimize and mitigate impacts associated with ever-increasing human recreation in important bighorn habitats. CPW will continue managing mountain goat numbers at a population level that allows for the continued existence of both bighorn sheep and mountain goats in this geographic area. And lastly, CPW is also evaluating the potential for habitat improvement projects for this herd. Thank you for your time today, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, and I'm going to echo it too. Everyone else has said it. These are very, very well done on the habitat management plan, the presentation not only on our devices, the report, but also your presentation right now.
Thank you.
Very
I
nice.
appreciate that.
Commissioner Schaefer and then Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you. Can you give me a Cliff's Notes of why alternative 3, the very modest increase, why that would be problematic versus the preferred alternative? Or what the detriments are, greater density, is there increased pathogen transmission, or what would be the shortcomings of that?
Sure. The shortcomings of alternative 3?
Yeah.
Sure. I'm just not sure that there's any indication or any evidence that this population is capable of getting to that population level. We've never observed the population at that level in modern times. I'm not sure it's ever been that high. Now, perhaps with some, a lot of noticeable habitat improvements or something, especially on winter range areas, maybe that would be possible, but it's not a level that this herd has ever achieved before, as far as we can tell. There could be some concerns with winter densities at that level. We're pretty happy with where winter densities are at this point for this bighorn population in terms of trying to limit disease spread and that sort of thing. It's also possible speculation, but it's possible that if this population were to really increase a whole lot, you'd run into a increased risk of contact with the domestic herds to the north. So speculation, but that's why the current alternative 2 was chosen mostly because it's status quo and because that's as well as this herd has ever done.
Commissioner Garcia, then Commissioner Vihil.
So the same question from Commissioner Schaefer, but on a bigger level. In talking yesterday with Bighorn sheep people and even more recent others, the population statewide seems to be in this same area where we're just doing status quo. And so he's talking about this unit, but I'd like to talk on a broader statewide basis. Why don't we see the possibility of increasing these herds? I know you see here potential habitat improvement projects. I don't know what that is, but I really want to talk about the bigger picture for just a minute if we could.
Sure. So for the record, Brian Dreyer, Terrestrial Section Manager. I want to start by just making some distinct differences between these high elevation herds and some of our lower elevation herds. So one thing that's really important to note about this is that the sheep that we have in a lot of these high elevation herds are wintering on the alpine. And so habitat availability is really driven by the ability or snow, wind wiping snow free from where they're actually existing. It's actually quite dramatic when you actually fly and do surveys in the winter that these sheep are literally wintering on windswept ridges and very small habitats. And so, I would say, from my kind of professional opinion, alpine habitats is going to be a really difficult place for us to make major gains in the number of sheep. And then when you throw some of these other threats like winter habitat use by recreation and other things, you even kind of exacerbate that problem on alpine. Now, lower elevation sheep habitats, I think we are seeing some gains, but that's mixed. And the productivity of our sheep is really what drives sheep abundance within the state. And largely, that's where the disease part comes in. And we see relatively low lamb to ewe ratios in a lot of these herds that's kind of preventing them from increasing further. But what I want to say is that varies throughout the state, but certainly that's one of the things that limits our growth. And right now, our tools to try and manage through that are honestly pretty limited. We're looking at different things to try and increase lamb-ewe ratios, but that's a really complex question that's really associated with a lot of disease. There's no known vaccines to try and help them through some of these disease situations. And so further work is needed. And further work is done, honestly, for the species as a whole to try and look at what other tools we have to try and help a population recover. Does that make
It does, but I also see the conflict with domestic sheep as being a major impediment.
Yeah.
And what are we doing to try to reconcile that?
Well, it's part of the reason why that wild sheep, domestic sheep working group has been established, is to get us at the table to start talking about paths forward on that issue. But certainly, the disease aspect of this is a major aspect that makes it so that that sheep, are more abundant wide scale.
Thank you. And just on a quick note, it's hard for me to find things, but the map of this area, if you could throw those in the PowerPoint, it's in the materials, in the bigger materials, the issue statement or paper, but it's not in the PowerPoint. So they're just always handy for me. If you throw a map in, I'd appreciate it. No big deal.
Commissioner Vihil.
It's really satisfying for me to see that this herd in good shape, because we've had problems with the unit below that to the south.
Right. Yep.
In the past.
Yep.
And
right.
It was with disease. So
that's right.
I'm glad to see this one is doing really well.
Yep. Good comment. Yeah, that's exactly right. We have had issues with disease in the unit to the south there. So, it is good that this unit's doing better.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reed DeWalt. We are on agenda item 34, herd management plan overview.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Director. Reed DeWald, Assistant Director of Wildlife and Natural Resources. I just want to start by thanking you for the time and attention that you continually give to my staff as we present these herd management plans. It's not lost on me that this is a considerable amount of work for all of you to read through them and to just give your attention to them. So I just want to give you my thanks and appreciation for that. I know that's a lot of work. What I want to present before you today is a continuation and hopefully a finalization of a discussion we've been having probably since May with the Commission on how we handle these herd management plans in front of the Commission. Some of what I'm going to show you is a repeat from the May meeting when then Terrestrial Section Manager Craig McLaughlin presented, but there were a few other things on our mind in May, and you may have forgotten some of this, so my apologies as this is repetitive. But the intent today is just to have a discussion and hopefully an action item and a decision from all of you as to how you want to continue to have this discussion with the Commission. So just a brief overview of where we're at. We just sat through 6 presentations, and I thank my biologists for presenting those so well. But I wanted to show you a larger picture of where we're at in the state. So if you count up all of these herd management plans for each DAU, we have 217 of these plans that could potentially come before the Commission. We have the deer plans on that map for you just to see the extent for, say, for just deer management. Just a brief overview of our herd management planning process. In 2017, we went through a lean process just for process improvement in how to do these plans. As you've seen, these are lengthy plans, and they represent hundreds of hours on both my staff's time, regional staff's times, and then public's time as well as your time. So these are, what you see here is just a very minor part of the input on these plans. In 2017, we went through the lean process to improve how we do these plans. I think we've made some strides there. Some of you are familiar with just the updates that we give, and those are much smaller presentations, so that maybe that would be a plan that's not controversial, that we would just do a brief update for you and set those plans for another 10 years. A lot of the plans you saw today were the full-blown plans, so those were lengthier in size. So during this lean process, we set out to update all of our plans, our herd management plans. These are set for 10 years. They exist for 10 years. And I know there's been some requests from the Commission to have these be 5-year plans or more easily updated. But I do want just you to be aware that they are 10 years at a time. Excuse me. So in the strategic plan, in the operational plan, in the side of the strategic plan, we have a goal to update all of our herd management plans. And so to do that, we would need to, our goal is to have them all up to date by 2026. So we would have over 200 plans that require updating every 10 years. And with the 2-step approval process, that would be about 40 presentations before you all a year. And I know your time is valuable. And I don't think we want to take up all of the Commission meetings with the herd management planning. But that's sort of what we're looking at, and I'll show you what we're looking at for just 2020 here in just a minute. So to catch up, as I said, in our operational plan goals, we would need to almost double this rate to be caught up by 2026. So a considerable amount of work ahead of us to get this done. Just for this year, the forecast that I've asked the team to put together, this is what we're looking at. So in January, we just did the 6 plans. In March, we're slated for 4. May for 6 plans, and then June will be the grand meeting with 15 plans. So that's fairly daunting if you look at that. And that's just for 4 months out. As I said previously, there's a lot more coming. It's really a desire to get these up to date. These are very important plans. We base so many of our management actions around what's in the plans. That we really do need to get these up to date. So it is a 2-step process, and typically we bring the plans before all of you with the local biologists. We've shortened up the presentations from what they used to be considerably, and I think that's been a process improvement. We're trying to stay between 5 and 7 slides and to keep those consistent amongst the 4 regional senior biologists so that what you see is predictable. We're still making some gains there. But we've previously had, I know when Commissioner Peisel was here, he had requested that we bring the second part of the plan to you. So for today, you saw 6 plans. The next meeting, we bring those six plans back before you for another overview. Typically, we bring those forward on the consent agenda. So the only ones we typically bring a second time for the full commission is if there's controversy around that. And sometimes there can be controversy or considerable public input around our plans. So right now, what you would see with these 6 plans that we just presented is next meeting they'd be on the consent agenda, and that's how you would approve them. So just to kind of close that question up a little bit, is that's how we would move forward. But previously, we brought those before the commission for a second hearing. And the biologist would travel back, and typically we don't receive a lot of comments in the second part. So in order to continue with this efficiency theme through the lean process, we've discussed that here, and it has not been real clear to us yet what the desire of the commission is. So this is kind of the ask of all of you today, is to give us some direction on how you would like to continue to have these presented to you at the commission level. So the first option we can discuss would be to continue to present the plans just like we did today, and then we would have the final on the consent agenda unless there was some reason to bring them off. So we'd be looking at approximately 4 hours in the next 4 meetings for planning and getting this done. Another idea we had, and I don't think we've totally discussed this with the commission yet, but I had my staff and myself work on this idea, is we could also come up with some sort of a noticed call that's a webinar, and then our biologist would present remotely to all of you or whoever was interested, and commissioners would be able to be on that webinar, and then the public could also participate. We could do that if there was a reason to bring them off the consent agenda, or to have them presented at the next meeting. Say all of you listened to the plan and said, no, this one's one we need to bring forward for whatever reason. We definitely do that. But then the majority of them, you would have heard them through the publicly noticed call, and we would just move those to the consent agenda. That's one idea. The third idea could also be to develop a subgroup of commissioners to review the plans. Same type of process. If there was one that had some controversy or some reasons to bring before the full public, we would do that. Other than that, the commissioners on that subgroup would move them to the consent agenda for approval. And the reason behind this is just to speed up these plans and get them done. We have a major workload, and we really want to meet that milestone and get that done. But we also want to be open to public comment and public hearing. It's a very important thing in what we do, as was stated previously. So just kind of like to receive some direction from the commission, or answer any questions, or even discuss a fourth or fifth option if there's those ideas out there.
Thank you, Reed. And just one point of clarification. So in any of these 3 alternatives or other alternatives, the actual plan would still be in the notice materials. So even if it were a subgroup of commissioner reviewing the plans, there would still be there would be a way for the public to review the plans and make comment?
Yes, exactly. Okay. And it should be noted, and maybe I didn't explain that enough. When these plans come to the commission, they've received a lot of public comment already at the local level, large amounts. There's usually 2 or 3 public comments. There's postcards sent out from people who don't live in that area to comment, and then they go to local county commissioners, the Forest Service, BLM, HPP, all those groups. So we do receive a large amount of public comment at the local level as well. So,
Okay.
But yes, to answer your question, yes, they'd be in the notice materials.
Okay, great. Commissioner comments, discussion. Commissioner Bray.
Yeah. Thank you, Reed. Overall, and I think Commissioner Vigil and I have expressed this several times, the plans that have been coming before us recent times, the last couple of years, are vastly improved over what they used to be. And I still think this commission needs to devote as much time to reviewing them as possible. And we have talked, instead of a day-and-a-half meeting, maybe we need, on some of these bigger months, to extend our meeting so we can hear more of your plans, because I think they are critical. I don't have any problem with subgroup and whatnot, but then again, every commissioner needs to really take how serious this really is. And just a general comment on the plans, it seems, and this has been on forever, and across the board species, whether we're talking bighorns, deer, elk, I don't know, whatever we're talking, it it seems like the preferred alternative almost every time is where we currently are. And there doesn't seem to be a very big push to increase herds. And I think we're missing an opportunity. There's obvious some areas we can't, but I think we need to push the envelope a little more on some of these and try to increase our populations and our objectives, because like I say, almost every time the preferred alternative, we have a historical view of where it was 10, 15 years ago and where it is today, so our going forward, we're just going to stay where we are. I don't necessarily think that's always good. I think we need to push the envelope a little bit. And then I think us as commissioners, now granted I'm a short timer now, but I think these are so important that you should extend your meeting day if you need to go over them.
Commissioner Vehil.
I concur with Commissioner Bray. I read those herd management plans, even if they're not in my area. I go through them thoroughly. Even the details behind the letters from the HPP, the local HPP committees, Forest Service or BLM or whoever is involved in it. And what I've found in my time is I learn a lot about herd management and wildlife management in general by reading the plans thoroughly. I get more out of one herd management plan than I got out of the 5-day class at CSU in wildlife management, because there, what I remember from that class is green snakes in Guam. And it drove me crazy. It's like, we have invasive species here in Colorado, let's talk about them. But we talked for about a half a day on green snakes in Guam. But if you go through that plan, these herd management plans in detail, you'll learn an awful lot about managing different species and how we do it and what the possibilities are. I would never want to delegate the reading of that plan to somebody else. I go through every one of them, and maybe it looks like I'm nitpicking sometimes with the biologists when they're up there, but I'm not nitpicking, because most of it is really, it's good information that we get from that plan, and the plans have improved so much, and thanks to you and all your staff, you've done a great job in presenting them and laying them out. I just think every commissioner should read every plan, especially if it's in their area. Thank you.
Commissioner Haskett, and then Commissioner Adams.
Thank you. I agree with both what Commissioner Bray and Vehil said. I have found and I haven't been here very long, but the plans have improved since the first one that I saw to now. I do think it's important that we all read them. On the wildlife side, this is the most important thing that we do. Today, for me, it was really beneficial to have two plans that were next to each other. We did that twice, and that was really good to see what it looked like on this side of the hill and what it looked like on this side of the hill. To me, if we could do more of that, I'd like to see that. But I think we really do need to see them. Thank you.
Commissioner Adams.
Hello, thank you so much. Building on what my colleagues said, which I agree with, and I agree that we all have a responsibility of reading all the plans, I want to revisit a couple of things. One, just this idea of compliance versus mission. So, right now we're dealing with a 10-year plan. I know there's been conversations around 5, and and you mentioned it in your presentation, but then there was no conversation after that. So I'm going to continue to stake my claim around revisiting how we do management plans. I've only been here for years. I feel like I'm getting a mini master's on herd management and wildlife, and so again, I think that is a testament to the quality of the reports that you and your team are providing. I do think we have an opportunity to look more holistically at an area as opposed to a species in isolation. And I would agree with Commissioner Hauser. It was wonderful today to hear and see the connection between those two units that are right next to each other. And I'm wondering if, as we're looking at these plans, if we can think about it at more site-specific as opposed to herd-specific, and what could that look like. And potentially, I would like to offer a recommendation that we consider piloting what that could look like in one area or region, so we can get an idea of how that potential approach may be a value add to some of the issues that we're seeing. So that's one piece. Okay, so I made notes. I want to make sure I get all of them. Compliance versus mission, 5-year plan, redesigning the structure, and the last one, see, and this is why I take notes, is stakeholder engagement. So going back to my initial comments yesterday morning about equity and those different inequities, how do we ensure a collective ownership around these? So yes, it's wonderful that we as commissioners read the plan, but we all can understand that the implications of the information on that plan are far-reaching to multiple audiences, and I would love to have more opportunities. It's wonderful that they can weigh into directly to your staff, but it would be great for the option number 2 to have some additional mechanism where we can have that public comment and engagement, not just comment like one way you talk to us for 3 minutes, but really a more robust engagement where we can also be a part of that would also be welcome. So thank you so much.
Commissioner Garcia.
So Reed, great work, you and your staff. Again, I said it earlier, but this is the most important part of these 2 days, is going through these plans. This is what we're here for, so thank you. You made a comment. For me, I don't see a lot of public comment when we're doing it here, and as you said, it's because you're getting it on the front end as you're doing the plan. Is that fair?
Yes, that's accurate. Yeah.
And so I, along with Commissioner Bray and Vigil and Haskett, I agree. We need to do this, and we need to do more of it. And Commissioner Bray suggested maybe that we do 2 days. And we've talked about that, and I think we should. And perhaps we can do a little combination of that, which is the second half of the second day. This is what we do. And those who can stay do, and those who can't. But at least, those who want to be involved, we've got to do it somehow. And it's easier, I think, for all of us, I could be wrong, to do it that way than to try to set up subgroups or to have separate meetings. We're together, and an extra half day means an extra half day, but I think we need to do it.
Commissioner Adams and Commissioner Haskett.
Again, I just want to reiterate that I am in agreement that we need to have continued involvement by all commissioners in reading and being a part of it. I also acknowledged before in my previous comment that there was strong stakeholder engagement throughout the process. And I still would love to create more opportunities for the public to be involved and have that real-time conversation. And so having those touch points be a little bit more visible. Before I joined this commission, I had no idea as a public taxpayer in Colorado that this even happened. So, I think how can we I have no doubt that we have strong stakeholder engagement. The question is, which stakeholders are being engaged? And are we being mindful about broadening the net so that there are more, as our state grows in population, we also have more rich and robust opportunities to expand the net. So that's something that, again, I really want to reiterate. In addition, we have an opportunity through the revisions of the Colorado Environmental Education Standards to think about and revisit the ways in which herd management are addressed in our K-12 system as well. So there are some ripple effects to this rich data that you have, and I'm just wondering how we can create a very robust and dynamic process that is a little bit more inclusive to underrepresented populations across the state, as well as more comprehensive, recognizing that, we are, again, really in a climate crisis, and this herd management piece is much larger. And I would challenge the notion that this is specific to the wildlife setting. Our national parks are obviously going to have implications to the herd, to herd management, and just, again, we as humans are also a species, and we are trying to manage other species. And so remembering that we really need to win the hearts and minds of our constituents here throughout Colorado to make to increase their willingness to make choices that are going to increase the health of our habitat. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Haskett.
Thank you. I just kind of want to give a shout out to staff, and when I've been to the public process, we get 10 or 15 minutes of presentation. When I've been to, when they're developing this plan, it takes 2 hours what they do for the audience there, and it's really informative. It taught me a lot about these herd management plans to start with, but in our area, I think they do an exceptional job. They go to different towns. They spend a few hours with people, and I think it's really well done.
Okay, so what, Commissioner Black.
I feel like everybody else talked. I like to stick with how we're doing it. I like reading them. It's very informative. I think it's important, and I will continue that. And staying the extra time, making the time to look through it, when whatever that looks like for us.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you. Reed, sort of touching back on something Commissioner Adams mentioned previously, talking about single species is great to be able to dive into details. Is there a way where we can combine things in a regional approach to be able to look at the different influences that, whether we're talking about predators or we're talking about elk, impacts upon deer populations? Is there a way that we can actually align these things together to talk about it in a holistic fashion? Or is that reinventing the wheel to an nth degree and too difficult? Because I think being able to talk about that also allows us to present a better picture of the challenges that are inherent for that area.
Sure, and I appreciate that question. So it's probably not the best answer, but maybe. What this comes down to is staffing. So each one of these biologists today that were presented in front of you have probably between 6 to 9 big game species that they're managing. And so if that particular biologist was to bring 3 or 4 species plans at a time, that's a considerable amount of work on that one biologist. I want my biologist out in the field instead of behind a computer screen for the most part, doing on-the-ground biology. So we can do it, and I was talking to Terrestrial Section Manager Dreher about this as well. I think we can look at that and figure out how to use our staff to do what you guys are requesting, but it's going to take some work to figure that out. I think a regional approach would be easier. So say we brought all of one plan for a region, all the elk plans for a region at one time, or all the deer plans. We could do that, but bringing like 3 species from the Glenwood Springs area, Julie's probably back there sweating right now, thinking about doing that. So that's just problematic, just the number of staff. In each area, there's a terrestrial biologist and an aquatic biologist, and you think about the scope of their work in just those areas, and it's considerable. So maybe we can come back with you on some ideas around that.
Okay, so I think, so I think what I'm hearing, I think initially, Reed, my thought was, oh, we're all going to go for a webinar, that's going to be the way it's going to be. I was way off. So it sounds like that is not what we want to do, and listening to everyone's comments, I tend to agree. A webinar's, a separate meeting is kind of a one-off. We're not, we're here, we're in the flow, we're together, we're already thinking about it. Let's make it happen. In looking at your slide 3 or 4, whatever it was. Today we did 6 plans, and we're all still alive. So in March, we're doing 4 plans. I think we can incorporate that into the agenda. I'm already planning on March being a full 2-day meeting, with the first half of the first day being the forum, the second half of the 19th, the morning would be a forum, and the afternoon would be a commissioner work session that could include these kinds of things. May, 6 plans, I think we can work that in. June, 15 plans. That's going to be a little more difficult. We may need to do a specific work session for that. So I'm hearing that we want to do option 1, continue to present plans at the PWC meetings, and then final on the consent agenda, unless there's something, some reason to bring it back forward. That's what I think I'm hearing, and we can do an official vote on it if we need to. I will just, before we do that, I will just add one point. The other thing I'm hearing, and hopefully this kind of helps to clarify it a bit, I certainly understand that we can't there are already really big plans that you guys have been able to condense down to a 5 to 7 slide presentation, which is phenomenal. By now saying, okay, well, now add more to it, add a regional component, that's really tough to do. It's also really tough to say, okay, we're going to do all the herd management plans and deer, elk, bear, mountain lion, pronghorn all at one time. So I wonder if, just something to think about, if there's a way we can, maybe just in the first slide or second slide, consider additional crossovers, like if it's a deer management plan, what's going on with the elk herd? Just like elk herd's great, pronghorn herd, not so great. What's going on with other, we don't have to go through every species, but if there's something mentionable, that could be in there. Could we add an additional crossover, such as the impacts, like like recreation components? Every single time, one of the biggest comments on these are what's causing the decline. If there's a decline, what are the reasons? So if there's a state trails grant that we've worked on in this region, what are we doing? If rather than just saying impacts are recreation and development, well, what are we doing on that? We gave state trails grant, or we're working with OHV stuff in this area. We're working on wildlife crossings in this area. So just thinking about other crossovers that we could maybe add a slide that has just a bullet point of the other crossovers. We're working with counties. We're working hard with Eagle County to make sure development permitting processes incorporate CPW recommendations. I don't know, things like that. So that's kind of, I think, what I'm hearing. Is that kind of what you're hearing?
Yeah, definitely. A point I'd like to make is we created these plans together. These aren't written in stone anywhere that we have to do it this way. And so what I've asked my folks in terrestrial to do is come up maybe with like version 2.0 of these plans. We've had these plans probably as long as Director Prenslow's been around. And so
They were in clay tablets at the time.
well, maybe they were written
They
in
were not
stone.
presented on PowerPoint.
So, but I think there's an opportunity here to revamp them, and we have 30, 40 years of science now that we didn't have when we first created this model. I've tasked my group to kind of revise these as well, to take a second look at this lean process. We want to hear what you guys would like in these plans as well. So maybe there's an opportunity, and I didn't present this earlier, to have some help from the commission with a subgroup, just to how do we revise these plans so that they meet your needs and meet the public's needs into the future here. I would like to see these plans personally less than 10 pages. There's a lot of history in there that we don't need to rewrite every time. It's history. And so we're looking at a process improvement within terrestrial to do this, and I don't know if that would be something we could start a subgroup there, get a couple members of the commission to help us as we look at it with the regions and within terrestrial. We'd offer that up as well, if that would be something to be helpful.
I like that idea. Commissioner Adams.
I love that idea. It sounds to be in line with what I've been requesting, so it seems it's wonderful to hear that you and your team are already talking about this, and I have no doubt with the quality of your leadership. Also, Commissioner Zimmerman, Madam Zimmerman, the dashboard idea, brilliant. I also, again, want to revisit, I had a mind spark here with this engagement idea. I have no doubt, Commissioner Haskett, that Reed and your team engage the communities that are being served by that unit. The issue is the people that are coming in, like myself. When I went down to Leadville, I have no, I'm on this commission. I have an idea of what's going on in the herds around that area. But the people I was with have no idea, and yet we have a significant impact to that area. So that's what I'm saying when I'm talking about extending the net beyond our traditional group of people that we're engaging. I have never, as a leader of Outdoor Afro, been invited to attend any herd management, anything in any area, and yet our organization and organizations like the ones we met yesterday, or representatives we met yesterday, Latino Outdoors, Brown Girls Climb as a climber, we're going out in all across the state, and we have impacts that we have no idea about. And that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how can we cast a broader net so that we can better engage with those folks on the front end and let them know that when you're coming out snowshoeing, mountain biking, hiking, climbing, that you have an impact to those herds. And you need to be accountable, going back to that slide that I sent yesterday morning on the inequities. We need to be, and the finger I point at y'all as I say three back at myself, need to be held accountable to those plans and to the impact that we have, not just monetarily. Thank you.
Commission Chair, Lauren Truitt, Assistant Director for Information and Education. Commissioner Adams, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I would love to work with you outside of what we're currently doing with our communication strategies around these. I know Krista's up here with policy and planning. We try and really do a good job, but if there are channels that we're missing, I would love to look at those.
And again, this is not a criticism.
Absolutely
this to me
not.
is an opportunity. I have no doubt. I have, been almost a year now, and I have been impressed by what you all have been able to accomplish in, the budget that we have, the staffing that you have, and the depth and scope of what we do as an agency is beyond impressive. These are just opportunities to amplify and grow, and so I'm happy to work with you and your team. And again, I think Mark Leslie's leadership yesterday in inviting those community groups that haven't traditionally been engaged is an important and critical step in making sure that we are creating meaningful relationships with these growing populations. And again, an important reminder, by 2050, Colorado will be majority Latinx. I look across the room and I do not see that representation. So that is something that we are going to have to address at a staffing level, at the volunteer level, and just, as we are doing our work. And again, I know and appreciate your leadership in making sure that things are translated, that we have interpreters, et cetera, because that's going to be a critical step to engaging meaningful with this extended and growing population. Thank you.
It really does, and it goes to our strategic priorities of building trust and awareness, the connection to the outdoor and the value of the agency and what staff brings. So again, I'd be happy to look at other channels. If email's not the best channel of communication, how else can we use social media channels or other platforms to really engage a broader constituency? So I'd be happy to explore those with you and see how we can do a better job.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia.
So just clarification, I know March, we've got a lot of work. May, JT will keep us busy, I'm sure, a little bit, but 6 plans. June, we're in Trinidad, and that's going to be with GOCO, which means we're probably going to have a pretty heavy agenda. So am I hearing, Madam Chairman, that you want to extend, you do agree that we need to extend those meetings?
Yes.
2 days?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we may not, for example, in March, that second day, we don't need a half day to do 4 plans, but there's other things that this commission has talked about wanting to have some work session opportunities where we meet as a commission. The public can be there, but there's no action items, there's no public comment, we're just having a work session.
No,
so
what I was saying was, if you look, June, we've got 15 plans.
That one may take a full half day.
And we've got GOCO. And so if there's maybe Reed and his gang may want to maybe move some of those into May. I don't know if that's a possibility. I don't know. It's a lot of work, I know, but.
And just to comment on that, typically we don't bring any plans in May. We did that, usually that's like, because we set the licenses in May, and it's a big meeting anyways. We're kind of pushing it with 6. So, but I didn't show you the look into the fall. There's other meetings in the fall. But we can continue to look at that. But right now, our best guess is that there's 15 on track.
And we also had that one meeting that we keep sort of open. What is that? July, August.
April,
something.
and, yeah, we can, yeah. We'll keep talking about how to strategize it. This is not set in stone. Commissioner Vehil and then Commissioner Adams.
It wouldn't bother me if in June we did 5 or 6 and do all the rest of them instead of 5. Do them in August or September. That would be fine with me.
Sure it would.
Commissioner Adams.
So again, I wonder, and again, your team is already considering this, so what is the protocol to changing the format? Like, can we just decide that we get rid of the history section if it's not going to have any updates? Or, can we get it to that 10 pages so that, by then,
Yeah, I would say, let us come back to you on that. I don't want to make that decision today. There's a lot of tradition and culture in these plans as well, and I need to make sure that we are aware of that, so.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
And I just want to make one clarification. This conversation, this discussion is a testament to how amazing these herd management plans are. 10 years ago, we didn't have HMPs in every single meeting, at least, or 7 years ago. I don't remember them like this kind of level. So this is a testament to how great these things are, the information that is given and how that information impacts everything we do. So, it's a very, I'm very happy to hear that your team also sees these as important and is looking at ways like, okay, we have something really great. How do we make it even better? How do we get this message out to the public in a way that it matters? So, a deer habitat management plan in Durango may not matter to someone in Denver, but the impacts to the deer herds in Durango due to your recreation when you decide to come camping from Denver to Durango does. And so I think all this conversation is just, these are great things. How do we use it as a way to, a year ago we talked about tell our story. How do we use these as a way to even further tell our story, to even further engage with the general public? So I just want to say thank you. By no means is this, yeah, these are great. Now go make it different. These are great. How do we use this to our benefit? So thank you very much. One more thing, and then Commissioner Garcia and then Commissioner Schaefer. I don't think, you tell me if you want an actual motion and a vote, but I think that there's consensus, direction from us on the way we want to move forward.
Yeah, the only thing I would ask is if there is some thought around that helping us develop the next version. We could
subgroup,
certainly
yeah.
use the help on that.
I do, yeah, a subgroup or subcommittee. I think let's talk about that next. Commissioner Garcia and Commissioner Schaefer.
So I just wanted to add that in going through these herd management plans, if you look just on the big game section that we had on our agenda this week, 36 items. And I think it's because of the trust that we build in looking at the work you do with the herd management plans, makes that easier for us.
Agreed. Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you. Speaking of the number 36, that's the average that need to be completed on a yearly basis in order to get to that number. And I think we've been on there's been some quibbling about our time. How feasible is it to be doing 36 HMPs a year with the current staff that you have?
It's a definite push, but I do think if we modify the plans and make them shorter, it's probably easier. And I do think there's a path forward where we can get it done. But it's definitely going to be a push and taxing on the staff. But once they're done, and then we'll revise them in 10 years or whatever. So I think for the time being it'll be quick, or it'll be hard, but we'll get it done.
Good question. Thank you for watching out for staff. What are you thinking for a subgroup? 2 or 3?
Yeah, 2 or 3 interested commissioners would be great. So.
Okay.
And we don't need to decide that today, but if folks want to volunteer, that's great. If not, I know I've taken up a lot of your time.
And you're thinking would meet over the next, like in February or in March?
Probably this spring.
This spring sometime.
Yeah, I know Brian Jer's still getting his feet on the ground, and he's probably freaking out. But
so maybe March and April are tough, but
yeah,
everything is tough.
Yeah,
and it could be a webinar. It could be up to the subgroup if we have a bomb cyclone again.
Yeah.
Maybe people traveling might not be best.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there folks, if everyone raises their hand, we'll punt this to another discussion, but are there 2 or 3 commissioners that would like to be on a subgroup to talk about how to look at these? I got Bray, Adams, Schaefer, Garcia-ish. That was kind of,
I'll defer to Luke, I'll defer to Luke. If he gets bombed out,
Charlie's going to be my alternate.
Okay, we got Schaefer with Garcia alternate. We have Adams, and I got both Bray and Haskett. Okay. Okay. I mean, 4 is fine, okay, too.
My opportunity to Commissioner Bray.
Great. Does that,
Yep, and it
Okay.
most likely it'll occur during the commission meetings, so we're not in violation of any public meeting laws or anything like that.
perfect.
Yep.
Although, if we do that, can we please be mindful about having a separate room outside of the breakfast room? It was very distracting to have meetings there. Thank you.
Fair point. Commissioner Garcia?
just a commitment from Commissioners Bray and Beal that they get this done before they leave.
We'll make sure that.
I agree.
Or they could stay on the subcommittee.
No, you have to be an appointed commissioner and a confirmed commissioner to be on subcommittee.
Within your term. Okay. Reed, thank you.
Yes, and thank you all. It's really encouraging to hear your kind comments to my staff. They truly are world-class staff, and I don't just say that just to pump them up, but our biologists, our officers, our whole agency is the envy of North America, and that's not platitudes. It's the truth. So your kind words are very much appreciated, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Krista Heiner, I know if you'd like to, there you are. I know we need to make just one quick clarification on some regulations we voted on yesterday.
Yeah, thank you. So for the record, I'm Krista Heiner, Regulations Manager. And you'll remember yesterday we added the resident senior annual combination small game hunting and fishing license as a new type of license. We realized, thanks to my colleagues, that we have separate regulations that identify qualifying licenses for the big game draw. And we already have the regular non-senior version of the annual small game fishing combo license included as a qualifying license. And so we just wanted to seek additional clarity from the commission. We, I guess, are proposing to add this new senior license, combo license, as a qualifying license. And we would propose doing it as an administrative cleanup at the March meeting. We've done similar things like this with the first responder lifetime resident combination license, which we added in November of 2019 as a qualifying license. I guess what we're looking for is any concerns or issues with that, and then maybe your blessing to start marketing that now. We have, our brochure goes to the printer the end of January, and so we'd like to be able to include that in the brochure if that's okay with you all.
So my understanding, I think, is that that is our intention, is that these new licenses do become a qualifying license. Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you. Refresh my memory, did we choose on a price level of the alternatives that were presented? It was yesterday, so it was a while ago for me.
The alternative that was proposed in regulations was $28. The price was $28. And so that is consistent with other types of qualifying licenses. Spring turkey, resident spring turkey license, also $28. Resident small game license, also $28.
Okay. Anyone in disagreement there? Okay. Is that enough? You have a
Yep.
blessing market. Yes, that is
Okay.
our intention anytime we do something like that.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Agenda item 35 is looking ahead to the March and May meetings. I think we've talked about this a lot. The only two things I would point out is, per our request, on the website now, if you just look up CPW Commission and you go to meetings, we have a look ahead essentially for every meeting. So there's an added column. If you go to that website, it says, what typically in March we're going to talk about these bullet items. Typically in May we're going to take care of these regs. Typically in June we're going to do these things. So thank you very much for that. I think that's incredibly helpful for both us, the staff, as well as public. The other thing is there's also at the end of the agenda here, actually on the next page, is another look ahead as to what where the March meeting will be, what kinds of things we're going to be talking about. So I think that's really helpful, and again, want to say thank you for addressing that. It sounds like we probably won't need an April meeting. We had been holding the 30th because some of us were going to be at Partners as an additional meeting date, but April is, with partners, it's really tough to be able to pull staff, pull commissioners, and if we know that March is going to go full 2 days and May is going to go full 2 days, I don't think that we're going to need an April meeting, but I will get back to everyone as soon as possible on that, but just for your planning purposes. I think that covers most of the look ahead. Like I say, we're going to try to get work sessions involved, some of those kind of things. I'm looking to Jeff. Anything I forgot there? Okay, let's go on to legal report. Jake Matter, floor is yours.
Sure. I just wanted to provide a little bit of extra detail. Assistant Director Versteeg provided you with a handout concerning the research projects, and I wanted to provide a sort of a quick update on the litigation. I provided an update to you right around Thanksgiving that sort of touched on the highlights of that. The Piceance and Arkansas River studies were approved by the Commission in December of 2016. Shortly thereafter, Wild Earth Guardians sued the Commission in a judicial review lawsuit seeking an injunction to prohibit the studies from moving forward. That injunction was denied in May of 2017. And in November of 2019, we received a favorable order affirming the Commission's actions in all respects. And I think an important line from that order sort of dovetails with what Reed DeWalt was just singing the praises of staff, and I wanted to read it to you. And it says, "The voting members of the Commission are a volunteer civilian-based body comprised of appointees representing numerous interests. The Commission is entitled to rely on the advice of technical trained staff to ensure their deliberations and decisions are well-informed, fair, and reflect the agency's experience and expertise." So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, and that's something Reed was just discussing. The case is over. The deadline to appeal has passed, so those studies will go forward, and those issues are put to rest. I do want to ask you to convene an executive session so that I can provide some legal advice concerning the proposed changes to W16, which is, I believe, agenda item 20 that was discussed briefly yesterday, and receive questions and be able to respond to Commissioner questions. The Commission's entitled to go into executive session to receive legal advice from the Attorney General's office as authorized by the Open Meetings Law, Title 24, Article 6, Section 402(3)(a)(2), which authorizes the Commission to receive legal advice and respond to questions and that sort of thing. So with that in mind, I would ask that the Commission vote to go into executive session as stated on the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Vehil, second by Commissioner Black. I've given you a second.
Still slow. No, he's so good.
Please call the roll, Laura.
Adams,
Yes.
Lecca,
Yes.
Bray,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Haskett,
Yes.
Hauser is absent, McDaniel is absent, Schaefer,
Yes.
Barty is absent, Vehil,
Yes.
Chair Zimmerman,
Yes.
motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
back on.
This is Jake Matter from the Attorney General's office. It's January 16th. I'm here with the commission. We just exited executive session as authorized by the Open Meetings Law, which is Title 24, Article 6, Section 4023A2, to receive legal advice and answer questions concerning the proposed revisions to Chapter W16. No decisions were made.
Thank you. Laura, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bray, or who was
Becca.
it? Blecka and Bray. Okay, Laura, please call the roll.
Adams?
Yes.
Blecka? Bray?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Haskett?
Yes.
Hauser is absent, McDaniel is absent, Schaefer?
Yes.
Vardy is absent, Behill?
Yes.
Chair Zimmerman?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Jake, would you like, you already stated the record. Okay. Any other questions, comments from commissioners? All right, we'll see you in March. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
We need more gavel next time.
More gavel.